Have you ever stopped to think about what really holds a story together? Especially a story written over thousands of years by dozens of authors? Well, today we're going to dive into this incredible narrative puzzle at the very heart of the Bible. It's a single problem that kicks off on page 1 and doesn't get solved until the final chapter. You could almost say it's the lock and key that gives the entire story its shape. And it all starts with this one simple question. Did God really say? Now, really think about that for a second. This isn't just some casual doubt. In the narrative of the Bible, this is the inciting incident. This is the spark that makes it possible, maybe even inevitable, for humanity to challenge God's word. And believe me, this isn't some minor plot point that gets resolved in the next chapter. This one challenge sets up a core dilemma that the rest of the biblical timeline has to wrestle with. I mean, if this problem can't be solved, the whole story is at risk of just collapsing under its own weight. Okay, so how exactly is this dilemma born? Let's break down the specific conflict that grows out of this single moment of doubt. So right after that first challenge, this prophecy is given, and it's like the opening move in a huge cosmic chess match. It basically sets the rules of engagement for the rest of the story. It promises this future showdown between a deceiver and a human who will eventually win, but not without paying a serious price. And here's why this is such a huge deal. This dilemma isn't just some philosophical idea. It's a real practical problem. I mean, if anyone can make a claim about what's true, how do you tell what's real and what's a flat-out lie? All of a sudden, just believing something isn't enough. You need a way to actually verify it. And this breaks down those two sides of the prophecy perfectly. On one side, you've got a final, decisive blow, the crushed head. But on the other, you have the hero of the story, who gets wounded in the process. That's the bruised heel. The story places a human figure right smack in the middle of this battle over what is true. But this isn't just some ancient story with ancient problems. As the narrative moves forward, you see the stakes for the story's own integrity. They become absolutely massive. And this is where the tension really starts to build. The entire biblical timeline is now hanging in the balance. Just think about it for a second. If this dilemma, how to tell truth from deception, is never actually solved, it kind of implies that the whole story could have been derailed right from the beginning. The narrative itself just falls apart. Okay, now let's fast forward thousands of years. The character of Jesus enters the story, and he steps directly into this ancient conflict. With this one statement, he's basically claiming to be the answer, the one person who can finally clear up all the confusion and settle the score. But see, that claim only works if the dilemma is real and if it's actually solvable. There has to be a genuine, verifiable difference between seeing the truth and being blind to it. If there isn't, then his words are just empty, and that original dilemma wins. So let's jump all the way to the very end of the Bible. How does this story finally try to solve the massive problem it created on page 1? Well, it's not with another argument or a new claim, but with something else entirely. Right, so after all this time, after centuries of conflict and competing claims, how does the narrative actually give us a final resolution? How does it all end? What's so fascinating about the book of Revelation is how it completely reframes the solution. It totally sidesteps the whole issue of who's the most persuasive, or who has the most followers, or who holds the most power. It's just not interested in belief. Instead, the story asks this question: who is worthy? And if you're paying attention, you realize this is the exact same dilemma from the garden, just in its final form. The question isn't about who can make the best claim, but who has the unique qualification to act. And this is the answer the text provides. It's not an argument, it's not a creed, it's an action, a key. The solution is presented as a singular, verifiable act, opening something that literally no one else can open. This act of opening the door is presented as the final proof of worthiness. It's the one thing that resolves the dilemma that started this whole thing. It's not a claim you can debate. It's a deed that is done, a lock that is turned, and it validates everything that came before it. So when we take a step back and look at the whole picture, from that first challenge in the garden all the way to this final key, a really clear and honestly surprising structure starts to emerge. What we're seeing is this incredible narrative symmetry. A very specific foundational problem is introduced in the Bible's first book, and a very specific corresponding solution is provided in its final one. The story answers the question of truth not with a better argument, but with a unique key. And that brings us to the final, really provocative question that this analysis leaves us with. Is this perfect narrative symmetry, this millennia-spanning structure where the lock created at the beginning is opened by a key at the very end, is that just a remarkable coincidence, or was the story deliberately planned this way from the very start?